Okay, so there was a question about how to further your development, that this person practices and takes classes and they feel stagnated. How's that?
That's actually a good discussion.
Okay.
I'd like to start though with words that come from, there's a book called Selfempowerment. It's written by Anne Gaiman and Ellen Ratner. And there's just so much information there about our people that have written in the New Thought movement and our early spiritualism and how our own self-development leads into the progression of mediumship. And this is a quote in the book that's from Jesse Charles Fremont Grumbine, who was in that category. He was writing in the mid 1800s. I'm just going to read his words right from and why some people don't develop. You may question your progress as a medium. In order to experience growth, you should make sure you have the necessary qualifications, preconditions for success. For example, determination to succeed, temperate, patient person, and persevering. You may have been informed already that you are a medium and that if you sit still, you will develop certain gifts. But you may say, I have sat and I have not developed, and I was assured that I would. Now I want to stop for a minute though, because not a lot of us sit anymore in group, right? We want to go to group and practice and practice and practice. And yet there's a recognition, at least at this time, and still now, that if you're with somebody else and you just take the time to be and explore naturally, that you help each other with that in that space.
Right.
That is, so the medium whom you consulted may have misjudged your capabilities. So we have to think of that. People often say, I have been told many times that I should make a good medium, but I have not yet had satisfactory results. When we hear such statements, we are prompted to ask, have you sat for development for any length of time in a harmonious and congenial circle? Which means, are you with people that build you up at the same time that you are working? You cannot expect growth unless you give the requisite conditions. Are you working on yourself and helping others grow at the same time? You might as well anticipate a harvest without sowing the seed, just because you brought a sack of wheat. The marvelous results achieved by expert acrobats and athletes are due to their indomitable determination to succeed and their steady and continuous training eye and muscle and nerve. They concentrate their attention and focus all their powers and are at once temperate, patient, persevering in their experiments. The same can be said for spirit of devotion, the same firm attitude and watchful attention to the details, and the same observance of conditions, physical, mental, moral, and spiritual, are needed if you would educate yourself and become a fit and serviceable instrument for spirit intelligences to afford humanity the benefit of their experiences from over there. Yeah, so it's all the conditions, our physical self, our mental self, our moral self, our spiritual self, how we react with other people, and how much we're educating ourselves, and are we doing all of those? And what I like first is it says, are we sure we actually have those necessary qualifications to begin with? Because I know I've said this before, I went for a music minor, but I never, ever could wrap my brain around or my fingers around playing that stinking piano. It didn't matter. I was a woodwind player, not a piano player. And even that was just mediocre. So my music is mostly in appreciation and understanding, not so much in the playing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, it does make sense. So you can admire an ability and want that ability, but do you have the endurance to carry it through? And do you have the ability to complete the journey?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I have complete appreciation for a lot of different styles of music.
Right.
Right. And I can understand different things, especially from the extra training. But I will never be a concert pianist. I could maybe hold my own at a kind of maybe a neighborhood little band, but that's it. I am not, and I think sometimes we want so badly because we appreciate it to be a certain style, but we could be a medium in appreciation and understanding of our own spirit connection and not necessarily be a medium that brings forth evidence for another.
Yes, correct. And also you had talked about when you're reading it, how people need to kind of share the energy with other people and be there for them. And it's a selfless act. Now, you can kind of apply that to anything in life where is what happens sometimes with us, we get so involved in our own stuff, oh my God, that sometimes what we need to realize is that we need to give back in order to get back. So we need to be of service to people in order to feel the gratitude from other things as well. Once we can get out of our own way and just be there for other people, our, self-centeredness, as I like to call it, kind of dissipates a little bit. Does that make sense?
I think it does. So it's not so much our wants or what we think we want out of it, but what the need is and how we can serve in that moment.
Right.
And there's all kinds of ways to connect with spirit that way. And there are instances of people, maybe this is the conversation. There's there's the learning aspect of it, right? And then there's we've heard it called unfoldment. It could be just the basic talent part of it. So how do we recognize our basic talent set with our development set, and how do they come together? How do our learning and our talents converge? And are we letting that go naturally to what it naturally will be, or do we try to force it into something because we think that version is cooler or not?
Well, I think in some circumstances, I know a lot of people that will take their time with their development. When I say take their time, I'm talking about years, and maybe 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and still just be comfortable in doing practice circles and stuff like that. Not that they have their shingle out or anything, but they just really want to hone their ability. And then you have some people that right away, they want to, okay, I got a year in, I'm good. Yeah, let me, and then I said, now what I'm seeing is a lot of people that are teaching.
Yeah, really early in their
really early, and you can't give what you don't know. You can't give back to what you have not experienced.
Exactly.
Even in my own teaching, I'm sure that in 10 years or 5 years or even 2 years, there'd be a lot more I can contribute to my students, but I made sure that I waited a sufficient amount of time before I started to try to get back to other people, started to teach. I mean, I gave it like maybe 7 years or something like that. I don't know. Was that true? I'm not looking at you. 8 years, something like that. I waited, I would do little tiny beginner circles and stuff like that, even in New Jersey, but I don't think I was teaching per se, just kind of introducing what a circle was.
I think that's very true. We have to have a handle on how we are in that mix before we can help other people find where they are in that mix.
Right. Yeah, and try to kind of develop our own style, just like you develop your own style of mediumship, your own style of teaching as well. And like we were just talking about before, there's a lot of things that we may be handed down to us, from other, because there's tons of resources out there and stuff like that, but the important thing also is, I'm going there, Jen. So the important thing is also to comment on where you got that from.
Exactly. And where you've built your own recognition from, honor the people that came before, or the people that we have learned with, or the people we have read, all of that.
Yeah. I know, if I hear you say something and I'm in a class, Jen Shepherd says this, Or I heard Colin Bates say this. I don't know why Colin Bates had it just kind of popped into my head. Or I remember Tony Stockwell giving this exercise.
Mhm.
You know, so it's really important to kind of recognize where you heard something from, and maybe they heard it from somebody else, whatever. But you
I
know,
mean, mediumship is not brand new. Maybe the vocabulary that we use now
not brand
within
new.
the last
No.
150, 200 years, but in the grand scheme of things, the connection to an other more than ourselves has been around forever. So
Yeah.
we have the whole line of history to learn from, and then to build on and to grow from ourselves. And maybe that's the other part of our own development and where we get stuck. Sometimes I think we try too hard, that we recognize a something in somebody else, and we try too hard to be that instead of recognizing our own way and our own connection, and to let that be the way it needs to be.
Yes, and I certainly don't want to plug anything, so I'm not going to do that here. But you might want to edit that out.
Plug away.
No, there is something that I'm going to do that is also going to. I will just say this: that I'm going to focus in on everybody's own specialty, their own, and how to recognize their own specialty in mediumship, rather than emulate other people. I see too many people emulating other tutors and whatnot, and they sound just like them. You know exactly who they get tutored from. But when you focus in on your own specialty, and when I talk about that, whether it's spirit art, whether it is scanning a body or understanding the medical, there's a lot of people that are in the medical fields that are great on not diagnosing, but getting the passing and the illness. So that's what I'm talking about. Getting into their own specialty, their only unique brand of mediumship as well. If you're an artist and you're really, really, and again, it goes back to the spirit art and whatnot, but also it could be that you read with color, because you're very familiar with color, if you're an artist or a designer of sorts as well.
No,
or if you're a botanist or you're into horticulture, just like we do with color, or I do with color. If I'm getting a little stuck with something, I'll ask the spirit people, please, give me a color that represents your personality. Same thing with flowers or trees. Give me a tree or a flower or something that represents you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, in a sense, we need to develop, and that's what I'm talking about, developing our own unique way that we read with our own uniqueness or our own specialty in life.
Yeah. And then
right.
Yeah. And then be willing to push the limits of that,
Yes. Like dive into that. Yeah. So there you go. I had a student that was into real estate, she's a real estate agent. And I said, great, you'll be great with remote viewing. She says, I never thought of that. And I'm like, yeah, you sell houses for a living.
Yeah, be able to see place that you're right though. I mean, we have so many other talents and we try so hard to fit, so-and-so says they see things this way and that way, and that might not be you. I've said this before, but I thought I was broken for a really long time because people around me are like, oh my goodness, I can see this and that, and this is going on. And I'm like, I got a nothing here. There's nothing, but I can tell you this, that, and the other thing, because it's just kind of there. I don't have this visual aspect, not a lot, and so to recognize that, you're not broken. You're just, you are you, and to use that.
Exactly. Okay.
Did we do that?
I think we did do that. That was good.
All right. So if you have any other questions, be sure to send them in. And thank you.
Yeah, send in any questions you want. Doesn't matter if you think they're silly, they're not silly. There is no silly question.
This is true.
Send them in.
Send them on in. We'll see you again next week.
Calm down.